Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our Chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition, and we turn now to poem 432, Do People Moulder Equally? This is, of course, a fascinating first line to a poem. In many ways, I think that this is a response to two things right away by Emily. The first is the Mark 9 passage, which verse 1, which will be repeated in the Matthew 16:28 passage. And it reads like this in the King James Version of the Bible that Emily would have known. Mark 9:1, And he said unto them, obviously Christ, Verily I say unto you, that there be some of them that stand here, which shall not taste of death, till they have seen the kingdom of God come with power. Okay? So that's the first, I think, passage that Emily's referencing. Now the second comes from Shakespeare's classic Hamlet, a play that Emily knew well. Do you guys remember when we did Hamlet and Act 5, Scene 1? And there's this exchange between Hamlet and a gravedigger, and the gravedigger is actually in the grave digging the grave of Ophelia. Hamlet doesn't know that yet. And Hamlet asks, How long will a man lie in the earth ere he rot? And the gravedigger says, Faith, if he not be rotten before he die, as we have many pocky courses nowadays that will scarce hold the lying in, he will last you some 8 year or 9 year. A tanner will last you 9 year. And then, of course, Hamlet will ask, why he more than another? And of course, the gravedigger will say, Why, sir, his hide is so tanned with his trade, he'll keep out water a great while, and your water is a sore decayer of your horse and dead body. Here's a skull now, and he picks up this skull that hath lain in the earth 23 years. Hamlet will ask whose it is, and the gravedigger will say it's Yorick's, and that will lead to maybe the most famous, iconic moment in all of theater, where Hamlet is holding Yorick's skull and speaking directly to the skull and tells the skull to get to his lady's chamber. Now, I think Emily is working with both of these moments in literature, if I can use that term, as she then creates this poem. Now, our assumptions is that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. Hopefully you've worked through our set of introductory comments, and as well, I'm hopeful that you've worked through our preceding 431 poems. We just finished with 431, Me Come My Dazzled Face. Now, if you've done that reading and you place this poem within the context of the previous 431 poems, you know that Emily has spent quite a bit of time thinking about death, thinking about afterlife, and the like. Now, I am following the great scholar Wolfe in large measure in this lecture, because Wolfe has made what I consider to be a profound insight as it relates specifically to this poem. And the way Wolfe says it in the description is this. The setting for this poem is perhaps a Sunday school class. The lesson, a verse from the New Testament, the Matthew 16:28 or the Mark 9:1 passage. Verily I say unto you, this is the quote from Matthew 16:28, There be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Some restless, now this is back to Wolfe, some restless little girl with an active imagination has let her attention wander from the theological lesson, and she raises her voice above the teachers to interject a question. Do people moulder equally? They bury in the grave? Now back to Wolfe. Dickinson has deployed this interrupting voice with its specific and faintly indelicate question to achieve that sense of direct address that Whitman also craved. Without any warning, the reader is accosted and plunged into the midst of a transcendent puzzle. How can mortals not taste of death? This voice of the child, I really like that we will read this poem this way. Do people moulder equally? They bury in the grave. I do believe a species as positively live as I, who testify it, deny that I am dead, and fill my lungs for witness from tanks above my head. I say to you, said Jesus, that there be standing here a sort that shall not taste of death. If Jesus was sincere, I need no further argue. that statement of the Lord is not a corruptible. He told me death was dead. Now, I find this a compelling poem on so many levels. Notice, it begins with a theological, rhetorical question. Do people moulder equally? They bury in the grave. Now again, I think Hamlet's 5, how long must a person lie in the grave ere he rot, is standing behind some of this. And then she'll say it, I do believe a species as positively live. And I can't help but think here of Leaves of Grass, passage 6. You'll remember that the child brings the grass and asks, what is it? How could I answer the child any more than he? We gave full lectures on every poem of Leaves of Grass at learnstrong.net in our playlist called Talks with Walt. And you'll remember that in passage 6 of Song of Myself, you'll remember they are alive, the dead. They are alive and well somewhere. And then you'll remember, of course, the famous line, the smallest sprout shows there is really no death. Here it is. She says, I believe there is a species that positively live. Now, she isn't making an argument for no one dying. She's making the argument that there is a group of people who live so well that after they're dead, they continue to live on. And in this regards, it maybe does take us back to poem 431 and the idea of how one will be remembered by the saints. As I who testify, notice the religious language, deny that I am dead and fill my lungs for witness from tanks above my head. And then she'll go to the Mark 9:1, Matthew 16:28 passage. I say to you, said Jesus, that there be standing here a sort, Emily loves to do this, where she kind of quotes, there's a poem, tell the truth but tell it slant, quote the Bible but quote it slant. I say to you, said Jesus, that there be standing here a sort that shall not taste of death. If Jesus was sincere, I need no further argue. That statement of the Lord is not controvertible. He told me death was dead. Now here she's referencing 1 Corinthians 15:54. Death is swallowed up in victory. What is the point that she's making here at 2a? I think her argument is that there are certain folks, species, who live beyond death because of the work that they do. And obviously I think this is Emily's quest. At 2b, I want to finish with Wolfe and the description that Wolfe will provide, this voice of the child. Begun with the insistent child, now to Wolfe. The poem has quickly become the property of a poet speaker, one familiar with biology and chemistry, from the Amherst Academy perhaps, where Emily went to school, and given to irreverent flights of high humor. The voice is conversational and perpetually present. One of the reasons we called our series Chats with Emily is this very poem. As I who testify it deny that I am dead, employing a strategy not unlike Whitman's eternally suspended now. You'll remember at the beginning of Song of Myself, I now 37 years old. Now back to Wolfe. The very vitality of this voice is proof of the argument the voice intends to make, such telling proof indeed that at the conclusion of the poem we're returned politely to Sunday school. Quote, now Wolfe will quote the 1 Corinthians 15:54 passage. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. End quote, 1 Corinthians 15:54. In the Bible, it is God's victory, Wolfe finishes. In the verse, it is the poet's. Emily Dickinson has taken the word of the prophet Isaiah 11:6, quote, and a little child shall lead them, end quote, and turned it entirely to her own purposes. I can't help but think as well of John Donne's Holy Sonnet 10, Death Be Not Proud. Finally, at 3b, who are the people in your life who will, you imagine, live beyond death? And is it possible that maybe Emily is one of those people? I certainly hope so. Thank you.